Look, this is a worldview issue, right? Donald Trump believes in the rules of the jungle. The bigger are in charge. The smaller have to. Even if you have the moral ground, doesn't matter. You don't have the strength here. So people may have mistaken his support of Russia in some sort of nefarious way when he just views it as, well, Russia and China are the big people and we have to deal with them differently.
That was Chunk. I haven't heard Chunk's voice in a while. The people at CNN invited Chunk on last night to ask Chunk's opinion about matters of war and peace because he's so smart. Just kidding. He's not really. Also, Chunk did not make note. There's a new Gallup poll. A new Gallup poll is out showing that support for the war is dropping off precipitously. Support for war in Ukraine is shifting. Now, here's the funny part. This is in Ukraine. The poll was taken among Ukrainians who live in Ukraine. And support for the war in Ukraine is dropping off precipitously. Ukrainian public support for fighting until victory has significantly declined, and a majority of Ukrainians now favoring a negotiated end to the war. A negotiated end to the war. But the Democrats are all in with the military-industrial complex. They want it to go on and on forever and ever because they're warmongers. President Trump, a peacemonger, Also, keep in mind, although I've been saying for years that it's time and past time to convert the United Nations building in New York City into condominiums, I got to say, my friend Mercedes Schlapp last night came up with a better idea on our TV show on The Right Squad, 10 p.m. Eastern on Newsmax. And Mercy said, no, we should convert the United Nations building into the Trump Library. Which is going to have to be in New York City, right? He's a New York guy. Speaking of which, the Obama Presidential Library, which is not called a library because they know that would scare away most Democrats. So they call it the Obama Center. And it is, it's the possibly the new ugliest building in the United States of America. It's a tragically hideous building and everybody knows it. And I hope to get to a bit of that as we go as well. Illegal alien truck driver might crash into the Obama Center in Chicago, destroying a neighborhood, destroying a park, and putting up maybe the ugliest building, not just in the United States, but possibly Western civilization. They should bring in a mariachi band, don't you think? Get that lady with a big purple sombrero and, what's it called, Mike? A bolero jacket. Yes. So he got that, a bolero jacket. Now I know what it is. I think I knew that once, but then I forgot bolero jacket. Now I've got it back. However, today is Wednesday, and I think you know what that means. That means two things. One is that it's hump day in the Clinton household, and so every Wednesday morning, Hillary Clinton wakes up face down in a pool of her own dried vomit on the linoleum kitchen floor of one of their multi-million-dollar mansions. Lying next to her, an empty 1-gallon cardboard box of cheap New Zealand Chardonnay ends up the same way every time. Secret Service agents standing over her, shaking their heads, tisk, tisk, with their knuckles on their hips. So sad, what might have been. She will never be the president of the United States. And, Hillary's got to keep in mind, along with Kamala Harris, that this is kind of funny, I think. The Democrats in the entire history of the Democrat Party, and they fought against women getting the vote, and they fought against the 19th Amendment. Successfully for years and years, they kept women from getting the vote, the Democrats did. But it should be reminded every time we talk about the Democrats and women and voting. They have nominated two women to become president of the United States. The first was Hillary Diane Rodham Clinton. And she went down in flames hilariously to Donald Trump in 2016. And that was the funniest thing ever, I've got to say, in American political history. And she lost, and she was guaranteed. Remember, the New York Times told us she had 98.7% chance of winning or something like that. And then they had Kamala Loopy-Doop Harris as their nominee last time around, and that was hilarious. They're going to have a woman as president. And both Democrat women who became the Democrat Party's nominee for the presidency of the United States, they both lost on Election Day and thereabouts. And they both lost to Donald Trump. Donald Trump beat both of the women that separately, not even consecutive presidential elections. And President Trump beat both of their women. That's hilarious. But in any case, so that's what's going on in the Clinton household today. And Bill Clinton, she's got to get out of the house because it's hump day. And Bill Clinton, even though ... or period, as Joe Biden would say, reading the teleprompter with an ellipsis in it. And it's hump day in the Clinton house, and Hillary Clinton wakes up face down in a pool of her own dried vomit. And here on the Chris Plante Show, we have, what do we have? We have Mailbag Day. That's right, we have Mailbag Day. And so with that said, it is now time to get to our mailbag questions. I'm going to try to get to all of them. Michael said, no, you should take these, and I'm going to see if I can get to all that. I'm going to try to go a little faster. All right, and the first question on the mailbag today from APSC, like Associated Press, South Carolina. Who does the most housework, you or your best girl? Well, that's a fair question, I've got to say. That's a fair question. Now, the truth is, I'm not lazy, but I'm at work most of the time. My best girl does, I could say, all the cooking with very rare exceptions, rather. And I help. Last night, the dishes, I attacked the dishes after dinner, and then we started doing the dishes together. And I did more than my share on the dishes yesterday. I try to be the guy to take out the garbage, although I noticed yesterday the 2 garbage cans in the drawer, in the kitchen, that they had been taken out yesterday while I wasn't there. I didn't take it out. But I try to be the guy. That's a boy job. I try to take out the garbage and do that stuff. And we, I'm working like 16-hour days every day, not to whine or to make excuses, but I'm not there most of the time. And we just moved to a larger place. It's still, there's no bowling alley or swimming pool or anything, but we just moved to a larger apartment in the city. And now, we never did before, but now, and I have 2 jobs and everything, and my best girl has a professional job too. And now every 2 weeks, not every week, but every 2 weeks, a nice woman comes in and cleans up for several hours. And I figured out per hour, she makes more than I do. Per hour, she makes more than me. Which is, America. That's an America thing. She's an immigrant to the United States from a European nation. And we do have that every 2 weeks, not every week. But I would have to say I'm going to defer to my best girl. She does more than I do. I try to be helpful. And every 2 weeks, not every week, we have a lady come in for several hours. I think that pretty much answers the question. Thanks for making me look like the jerk. But, that's okay. That's right. The truth is what counts. Stephen Decatur asks, good morning, Chris. Do you think Clapper, the crooked former intelligence guy, General James Clapper, do you think Clapper will be the fall guy for what's coming? Do you think he'll flip on all the other rats? Let me say this, Stephen. He won't flip because they all goose-step together into oblivion in their effort to destroy the United States of America in the name of saving democracy and patriotism. He will not flip. And will he become the fall guy for what's coming? I'd just like to think that something is coming, Stephen, that will lead to accountability. I'm an optimistic person, but I might be a little bit cynical when it comes to our government officials who've been lying to us and tricking us and lying to us and lying under oath, as Clapper did. I'm hopeful that there will be accountability, and will Clapper be the fall guy? He is right now looking like he's first in line, I've got to say, and he is on camera lying under oath, which nobody seems to care about at the New York Times or at CNN. Will he be the fall guy? I hope somebody takes the fall for what they've done. I think John Brennan, penitentiary phase, Communist Party voting, CIA director under Barack Obama, I think he's a villain of the first order, corrupting our presidential elections not once but twice, along with FBI Director James Comey, who is now pleading medical issues. Have you seen this? He's getting the sympathy vote in every newsroom in America. Stephen, I'm going to remain optimistic and hopeful that anybody will be held accountable. But Clapper will not flip. None of them will flip because they're like Germans. They should be wearing armbands as they goose-step together into oblivion. Yeah, but, only time will tell, as they say in newsrooms also. Virginia Cottage. Mailbag question number 3. Why isn't anyone following all the white, mostly over 50 crowd of protesters back to their chartered buses and getting the story with video? Journalism is so dead. They all look like they came down from Bethesda for the day. Fake outrage. Virginia Cottage knows whereof Virginia Cottage speaks. Absolutely true. They're bussing them in. They're fake, what do they call the fake protest? The AstroTurf protesters. And they're paid by George Soros groups and so on. And we don't have a news media. You're right, the news media, journalism is so dead. They should be covering this. Conservative media has to cover everything to get the truth, and they have to get the videos, like the drug dealer being arrested on the streets of Washington the other night that we shared with you here. Conservative media covers everything. The news media covers up. The liberal news media, which is the rest, covers up everything. Honestly. Why don't they cover it? You got to look for a conservative media to provide all of this. And the so-called mainstream, the corporate media, they don't cover the news. They cover it up for the Democrat Party. It's tragic and terrible. John in Macon, Georgia, next question says, do you think justice will finally catch up with Hillary, or does she skate again? I think the best we can hope for with Hillary is reputational damage. I honestly think there will be no charges against her ever, no matter what. But I think that if the truth can come out about her and the dossier and the work with the FBI and the intelligence community to corrupt elections, if the truth comes out about her, that would make me happy enough, I think. But will she skate again? I think she will effectively skate again. Best we can hope for, best I'm hoping for with her, is reputational destruction, which she richly deserves and has earned. Mock asks, hey, Chris, how much coffee do you have to drink daily to power through your day? How do you take it? What's your favorite blend? I'm guessing you're not a latte macchiato. Is that macchiato? Macchiato cappuccino drinker, except in those situations where apropos me either, right? Well, let me a pretty simple answer. I've never had a cup of coffee in my life. I've never drunk coffee in my life. Jasmine is slack judge. She's screaming on the other side of the glass. I've never had, when I was a kid, I didn't like the smell of coffee. I didn't like coffee grounds. I remember it when I was 3 and 4 years old in Milwaukee, and my mother and my grandparents would drink coffee, and I'm like, man, that stuff is awful. And when I was a little kid, I immediately took a dislike to the smell of coffee, to coffee grounds. I've never had I've barely had a sip of coffee, just barely. And it wasn't coffee. It was, what do you call the espresso martini? An espresso martini. I'm like, it's a martini. And I say, yeah, but there's coffee in there. And I think my best girl convinced me to do it. I had a sip, and I said, well, it's a martini, but it's awful because it's coffee. So, and then Matthew Hyatt says, since Mailbag Day is also Hump Day in the Clinton household, I'm curious, will the Eden Pure, the Eden Pure Thunderstorm air purifier, will the Eden Pure remove the smell of dried puddle of cheap New Zealand Chardonnay vomit? Now, the truth is you got to clean it up first, because Hillary Clinton, you got to peel her face off the floor. Got to get like a big scraper, scrape it up, got to clean it up. And then once you've cleaned up the actual physical stuff, then, yes, the Eden Pure Thunderstorm will take care of that smell that Hillary Clinton leaves behind. Yep. Yes, sir. And then Kevin Kneffel, kind of like Evil Knievel, Awful Knawful. Kevin Kneffel says, Chris, I feel when companies go unwoke, I should start using them again, like Twitter. My question is, if Budweiser hired a traditional, attractive, gun-shooting, sports car driving Sydney Sweeney, the lovely Sydney Sweeney woman, to talk about her great cans, and they are nice, would you start drinking Bud Light again? Would you start drinking Bud Light again? Well, I don't know. I got to tell you, I've discovered all these other beers, and I'm very happy with all the other beers that I've discovered that I keep in my refrigerator, that I get when I'm out at places. I used to only go to places that had Bud Light in bottles, in cold bottles. That's not the case anymore. Now, if they did hire Sydney Sweeney, I'd have to give it some serious thought. They could redeem themselves. Who was that guy they put on there? I've erased all memory of the guy. Who's that guy? You know, that pretended to be a girl. That guy. You know, that guy. But Dylan Mulvaney. See, Jasmine knew it too. I was trying to read her lips, but that's Dylan Mulvaney. I got to tell you, Kevin, if they got Sydney Sweeney, it'd go a long way. Be a long way to getting me back on board. I did confess recently that I had one bottle a while back, one bottle. I felt bad about it. I had to come in and confess on the air, but just one bottle. And that's our mailbag for the day. Mailbag questions. Yeah, you know, Anheuser-Busch, or it's Tranheuser-Busch as it's known now, Tranheuser-Busch. They really scrod themselves and their consumer base. They could try to get me back. I just hope that the billions that they lost can never be recouped. You know, that Harvard lady they put in charge, she came up with that brilliant idea. We want to get rid of all of our customers, she said.
Bud Light sent me possibly the best gift ever, a can with my face on it.
And I'm told it's macchiato. Is that right? Macchiato? Macchiato, not macchiato. Macchiato is correct? Oh, I called it macchiato. That's right. Because I think it's like, I was like Ralph Macchio is all I know. It's macchiato, not macchiato. That's what I screwed up. Since I don't drink coffee, I got cappuccino right because I've heard that a lot of times. But I don't drink cappuccino. I don't drink macchiato. I don't drink black coffee. I don't drink any coffee. But that's kind of a fun mailbag question, and that's an easy one for me since. Yeah. Now and the question was, you know, how much coffee do you have to drink to power you through your day? I did have a half a can of Coke this morning before I came into the radio station. Half a can of Coca-Cola, but no coffee for me. They got caffeine in Coca-Cola and sugar, so it's got parts of coffee. So much fodder thanks to the Democrat Party and so little time, only 3 hours a day. How is that possible? I'm going to need more time. I'm going to have to go to Newsmax and do a 1-hour TV show tonight. There's this funny video. It's a kind of funny video. It's a sad situation. But the Democrats, they run institutions like the University of California at Berkeley, where it's a farm club operation for left-wing radicals, right? And a woman who went to UC Berkeley and got a PhD, she got a doctorate, and from the University of California at Berkeley. And Michael, what is her degree in, her PhD? Soil biology. Soil biology. Soil like you soiled, the knees of your pants gardening. Soil biology. She is a biologist. I wonder if she knows what a woman is. Unlike Joe Biden's nominee to the United States Supreme Court. But this is a pretty wacky video that this woman posted. She is in what would appear to be, I guess, her own automobile, but she's in the passenger seat, and she's wearing a sweater, and her long brown hair halfway down the front of her chest in pigtails. They're not ponytails; they're pigtails because they're woven. And she's wearing glasses, has a little bit of a turtleneck on, and a purple sweater. a knit sweater. And she's sitting in the front seat of a car making a video of herself using apparently her own telephone, thanks to the patriarchy and Western civilization and capitalism in America. But you gotta hear this woman. She has a PhD in soil biology, and she's complaining that she can't find a job, and she blames capitalism. She blames because she went to Berkeley for so long that they gave her a PhD. And because she decided to go to school for decades or whatever it took to get a PhD in soil biology, she is making a video and posting it on Al Gore's amazing internet, peace be upon him, blaming capitalism for her inability to secure employment.
Getting crushed by capitalism
Crushed.
is like so cringe, but
So cringe.
it's like it's happening to me. And like I got a PhD from Berkeley, and like I can't get a job to save my life. Like I got a soil biology PhD, and like now I'm a tutor and a babysitter and a dog sitter. And like part of that is because like I don't want to like move to some random place in the middle of nowhere. But like the other half is like they cut all the funding for science, and like the biotech market is just like absolutely cratered, and like I have long COVID, so it's difficult for me to work like a full-time job. And just like I got on here to rant a little bit, but like, oh my God, like what do we do? I just have to work.
But now, I think she's a typical Democrat Party voter. She has a PhD, and she has a PhD in soil biology, and she doesn't want to move to the middle of nowhere. Where exactly did you think you were going to ply your trade? Do you think soil biology is maybe Central Park, Needle Park in Manhattan? Where did you think you were going to be demonstrating your skills in regard to soil biology? She can't, and crushed by capitalism, she said. It's crushed by No, maybe they should have told you at UC Berkeley, well, I don't know what you're getting a master's in soil biology for. What are you going to do with that? Well, then I'm going to get a PhD in soil biology. It'll take 5 more years and cost me another $400,000. And I'm going to get a PhD in soil biology. Then what are you going to do? Complain and whine and become a dog sitter and a babysitter and tell people I have long COVID, so I can't really work very hard, but I can't get a job to save my life, she said. Maybe you should have gotten a business degree. Maybe something that people can use, and a PhD, no less. You think you get your BA in soil biology. What kind of job are you going to get with your soil biology degree? I'm sure that there are jobs. And then you get your master's, and then you figure, well, but I'm not done yet. I'm going to get my PhD in soil biology, because then, you won't be able to keep me away from getting a great job with my PhD in soil biology. Crushed by capitalism. She blames capitalism. At UC Berkeley, somebody should have said, you're probably overinvesting time, money, your life in your soil biology, your pursuit of gainful employment in the realm of soil biology, maybe a bachelor's degree, a BA, or a master's degree, an MA maybe in soil biology would take you where you want to go. And then she says she doesn't want to go to the middle of nowhere to demonstrate her skills with soil biology. So I guess New York City, here I come, waving around her degree, a PhD in soil biology. This is what Democrats do. I'm guessing that her parents were paying her way through UC Berkeley, and it's California state schools, so a lot of it is paid for by the taxpayers. I can't get a job to save my life. I've been crushed by capitalism. I've got a PhD in soil biology, and now I'm babysitting and dog sitting. That's what I'm doing.
Oh my God, like what do we do?
And the great thing is, or not, is that nobody's calling her to say, hey, I've got just the job. Now I've seen your video. I've got just the thing for you. because we're running a soil biology operation over here that will pay you huge gobs of American money. It's going to be wonderful. You're going to love it. Isn't she great? Can you help me, please? I've been crushed by capitalism. I can't get a job to save my life.
I have long COVID, so it's difficult for me to work like a full-time job.
Man, she could probably get a job, I don't know, the Human Resources Department at UC Berkeley or something like that. Just great. Wonderful, wonderful. She loves dirt. She loves dirt. She's a dirty, dirty girl. Isn't that great? She's an expert in dirt. And she sounds like a little teenage girl, which doesn't impress your PhD from University of California at Berkeley. Nice job. Heck of a job. Real good. Democrats. They're a funny bunch, aren't they? Let's get, because the Democrats, they're very angry. They've forgotten all about occupying the city of Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, with National Guard troops for 4 months because January 6th, where Ashley Babbitt was shot and killed without mercy by a racist U.S. Capitol police officer, was named Lieutenant Byrd. He was promoted. He got a promotion and an award for shooting and killing a woman who spent 12 years serving the Air Force honorably and wasn't kicked out like Hunter Biden was kicked out of the Navy. But Ashley Babbitt was shot and killed. And that was the biggest event of January 6th. That's for sure. And the Democrats, they rioted at the White House for 3 days, forcing the evacuation of the president and the first family to the underground nuclear bunker. And they set fire to the church of the president's, St. John's Church. And nobody got a day in jail. Nobody got a day in jail. But that's because they're Democrats. And Democrats are filthy, rotten, corrupt. And in D.C., you get a grand jury. And they say, well, should anybody have charges pressed? Like, no, Trump was there. So, we're all psychotics. But now they're really upset because the crime in Washington, D.C. is just fine. It's perfectly good. There will be, 200 homicides this year. Well, we had 40-something children have been murdered under the age of 18. All black, every one of them black. I think 44 is the number. Who was talking about it? It was Jeanine Pirro, the U.S. attorney in Washington, D.C., and the Democrats don't care. They're like, crime is not a problem. Crime in Washington is not a problem at all. It's just fine. Everything is good. We like crime in Washington. We like a lot of murder, and we like a lot of carjackings. And crime is down dramatically. I was reading the numbers for you yesterday. Crime is down dramatically since the Trump administration decided that we would start enforcing the law in Washington, D.C., having to do with murder and carjacking and all kinds of terrible crimes perpetrated by Democrats. And the Democrat, they have like Democrat members of Congress, Jamie Raskin, who is, as you know, the lost Marx brother. He is an impersonator, a Marx Brothers impersonator. And he, Jamie Raskin, is very upset that the National Guard is in Washington, D.C. again after January 6th and through Inauguration Day and until April. The National Guard, I think 25,000 National Guard were deployed inside Washington, D.C. because they only recognize one riot as a riot. That's January 6th. They rioted all over the city. They looted this neighborhood where the radio station is. They looted the Lord & Taylor, which is now closed down, bankrupt, behind the radio station building. They looted my neighborhood where I live in Washington, D.C., miles from this radio station. They looted downtown Washington. They burn, they loot, they plunder, and that's all okay. And then January 6th, they called out 25,000 National Guard in Washington, D.C. for 4 months. Here is the lost Marx brother. He has no memory worth talking of.
Now they're mobilizing the National Guard. They're bringing that National Guard in from South Carolina, from Ohio, from West Virginia, from all these states. Why? And what's the precedent for that? I'm not even sure what the authority for that is. Under whose direction are they serving? Are they being directed by the governors of those states, or are they under President Trump's direction now? But does that mean they've been federalized? Because I don't believe they've been federalized. So this is just a recipe for chaos. And if this is the template for what he wants to do in all of these other so-called Democrat-run cities, it is a recipe for chaos.
Yeah, they're all Democrat-run cities that have these off-the-charts murder rates. I heard some Democrat liar on television yesterday, CNN or MS, what's the difference, saying, the 8 states with the highest murder rates are all Republican states. He said red states. I don't call them red states because they're the reds. They are red. They're commies, and we're not. But they got to choose the colors first because of information dominance. So they chose blue for themselves, even though they've never been more red than they are now. But never mind that. And I said I was in my car and I was listening to this on the satellite radio, and I said, well, that's because they've got some Democrats in those states that are murdering a bunch of people. So why don't you guys stop murdering people? And they're Republican states, but they have Democrat cities, and that's where you find the murders and the murderers. That's the thing. And again, in 2021, the United States of America, thanks to Joe Biden's ineptitude, we had 13 Americans murdered in Afghanistan. The total number of Americans killed in 2021, 13. In Afghanistan, where there's a war. In the same year, 224 people were murdered in Washington, D.C., which you can drive across in about 20 minutes. And it's not the size of Afghanistan or the population of Afghanistan. And we had 224 people murdered in Washington, D.C. And they will tell you that's not a problem. Eugene Daniels. He's the DNC, the Democratic National Committee guy, and nobody knows who he is. And he was on MS-13 DNC.
Doesn't it feel, though, that the chaos is the point, Congressman, right? When you think about, and you talk to folks who study authoritarianism, right? And they say, and you as a constitutional law professor yourself will know this well, is that you start with a lot of chaos, right? Making people feel unsafe, and then you come in flying in with your red cape to try to save it.
You're shooting everybody. Stop shooting everybody. How about that? Stop murdering people. Stop killing people. Stop carjacking people. Stop raising criminals. The problem is not our guns. It's your sons. And the chaos is real, if you consider 224 homicides in Washington, D.C., 68 square miles. If you consider that to be, something other than chaos, and the Democrat Party, they see all these murders and they say, what? That's fine. Again, the homicide rate in D.C. over the course of 5 years, according to the United Nations, 41.5 homicides per 100,000. In London, it's 1.1 per 100,000. And the Democrats are fighting to maintain the status quo because I think they're invested in caskets and funeral homes, the Democrat Party. Hey, I want to talk to you about living a better digital life, a life in the digital world, on the internet, and your phones and your laptops and your iPads, with one of our newest partners, the wonderful people at WebRoot. WebRoot, I chose WebRoot because of the Total Protection Plan. WebRoot's all-in-one package offers plan options for individuals, for families. The individual plan allows for coverage up to 5 devices. The family plan, up to 10 devices with a family package, and they got you covered no matter what. Because WebRoot's coverage includes antivirus protection, identity theft protection, VPN backup, and a whole lot more. And listen, everybody in the family uses the toddlers, use the iPads and the phones, the grandparents up in the in-law suite. Everybody's using the internet, right? And WebRoot wants to make sure your entire family is protected. Whether we're talking about a toddler or a student or a senior citizen, WebRoot allows for me and my best girl to live a better digital life, and that's why I feel free, and it's right to recommend that you do the same. Right now, you can get 50% off of WebRoot's Total Protection or WebRoot Essentials, because we hang out together, when you go to webroot.com/plant. Again, you get 50% off because we hang out together off of WebRoot's Total Protection or WebRoot's Essentials plan when you go to webroot.com/plant. Yes, sir. Isn't that great? All right. What can I get to in the time we have remaining? How about the Barack Obama not a library in Chicago? Nobody likes it. It's awful. It's terrible. Even the Soviet Union wouldn't build something this ugly. I want to share this with you, but a fun photo making the rounds today, a 4x photo of Joe Biden doing a big smile and shaking hands with Vladimir Putin. Hillary Clinton yucking it up and laughing and shaking hands with Vladimir Putin. Bill Clinton yucking it up and smiling and shaking hands with Vladimir Putin. They paid him $500,000 for a speech in Moscow. Barack Obama smiling it up with Vladimir Putin. Obama loves communists, and Putin invaded Ukraine and took over Crimea under Obama, and it wasn't even in the papers. The news media didn't care. But we should share this little 4x4. You can share it with your Democrat family and friends. These people, can I say? These people. All right, let's take a phone call, Michael. Let's go to Mark calling from Alexandria, Virginia. Marcus, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris. Hey, I just got to tell you how funny your last segment was about the Dem that was talking about, capitalism, bringing her down or whatever. And then Mike injected that piece right on time. It was just perfect. She's like, oh, my God, what are we going to do? What I'm thinking about, Chris, is, look, capitalism is the very thing that would work for her, especially in the field that she's chosen. PhD in dirt. I'm in construction, Chris, so there's so much call right now as they're needing soil experts for all kinds of things around here. So she could actually hang her shingle out and do well. I was just going to use a guy that you and I probably both love. Remember the old running back for the Redskins, Larry Brown?
Sure.
Well, he played for the Redskins probably about 8 years, I think. And then guess what? He had a business degree. He hung out his shingle. As far as I know, he's still doing distributing and doing well.
Yeah, business. Everybody should get a business degree. Biz econ all the way.